Hello, everyone, and welcome. We have Stacy Cross back with us again from the McDougall Starch Solution Program. We are so very excited to have her here with us today. We have been gone, and so we came in last night at like 8 p.m. from being on the road all day. So I'm a little tired, but Kathy has been in. Tomorrow is going to be release day for the Ninja Creamy Book 3. So she is finishing up some of that stuff and won't join us today. But we welcome anyone who has any questions for Stacy to please put them in the chat and we will address those. And Stacy, if you would like to go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself a little bit for folks who may not be familiar with you.
Yeah, sure. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Stacy Cross, and as Cheryl said, I work for the McDougall program, and I love what I do. I work with patients through a number of different health issues and goals and aspirations that they have to kind of take charge of their health, lose weight, get off medications that they don't want to be on, all those types of things. And I'm a support specialist there, which means I kind of help hold their hand as they go through the 12-day online program that we run now. We have our last program of the year coming up on July 11th. It'll be July 11th through the 22nd. And so I think we may have one or two spots left. So if anyone's interested and has been thinking about joining us for a 12-day program, it's now or never. Not really, but it's the last one for the year. And as you know, we're only at the end of June now. And so it'll be a long time before we have another program. That'll be in 2027. Wait, 2026. I'm sorry. I just skipped a year for no good reason at all. I'm just all over the place. But anyway, so we'd love to have you join us. We can talk a little bit more about the program today, just for those of you who may have questions about the program itself. But I'm also very happy to answer questions about the McDougall diet, about lifestyle medicine, lifestyle change, anything like that. That's all in my wheelhouse. So feel free to fire away on questions if you'd like.
I see we've got quite a few people have joined us. Vegan Knowledge JJ is here. Nikki's here from Lady Lake. We were just over in your area yesterday. Caroline is here. Karen Hicks has a question, actually, Stacy. She says, I'm 67 years old and have some weight to lose. Using the maximum weight loss program, can I lift heavy weights or wait until I lose my weight? I do walk 5 miles a day.
Okay, well, that's a great question. So it depends on lots of things, but it sounds like you have a pretty high activity level. And if that's the case, you may find that following the tenets of the maximum weight loss style of the McDougall program does not leave you satisfied, because everything on the maximum weight loss style of eating is very low in calorie density. And so if you're burning a lot of calories because you're walking 5 miles a day and you're lifting heavy weights, I would encourage you not to hold so tightly to maximum weight loss. In fact, what I usually encourage people to do is try to just follow the regular McDougall diet. And for those of you who don't know the difference, long story short, the difference is that with maximum weight loss, the idea is that you're trying to lose weight as quickly as you can, which, by the way, doesn't always work out for the best. I tend to be a slow and steady wins the race kind of person, but I understand that there are so many people out there who are like, nope, the quicker the better, let's get it done. And so anyway, so the maximum weight loss plan pretty much takes advantage of the fact that the foods on it are very low in calorie density. So that's your fruits, your vegetables, and your water-rich cooked starches like potatoes, corn, quinoa, rice, barley, beans, cooked oatmeal. Those are your water-rich cooked starches. As opposed to the regular McDougall plan, as you guys call the starch solution plan, which does allow for dry starches. So like breads, whole grain muffins, oil-free, whole grain, animal product-free muffins, pancakes, baked goods like that. And it does allow for some nuts, seeds, avocados, and dried fruit here and there if you want that. So anyway, you may find, Karen, that for your caloric needs, as someone who is very, very active, the maximum weight loss style might not be totally fulfilling to you right now. So you just eat what you eat, and then you take the data from the scale and go from there. Now, let me add to that the fact that the scale is not a very reliable tool for people who are weight training, especially at the beginning of their weight training journey. So if you just started weight training, within the last, I would say 8 to 10 weeks, the scale is almost useless. It really is, because you're going to be gaining muscle weight. So, and as you guys know, muscle is denser than fat. And so a pound of muscle takes up this much space in your body, and a pound of fat takes up this much space in your body. And as you're building muscle, you'll see your weight increase because you are building muscle, especially initially. It can happen a lot more quickly than it does for people who've been weight training for a good long while. And so you'll see your weight go up on the scale and go, oh no, this is terrible. But it's not. It's highly likely that you're actually replacing body fat with muscle, and that you weigh more because muscle is actually denser. So in that case, I really encourage people to go off of things like the fit of their clothing. Like, get yourself a really good, not stretchy jeans, okay? We're not talking about stretchy clothes. We're talking about like 100% cotton Levi jeans, for example. Something that doesn't have a lot of stretch or give to it, and just try it on every, once a week or something like that, and see how it's fitting you. That is a much better, more reliable indicator of, are you actually losing body fat, than the scale itself when you are weight training.
Yeah, it's it's funny. We were at my parents' house yesterday, and the first thing my dad said to me was, he was like, maybe you need to be buying your shirts a little smaller, because my shirts are all starting to look a little bit too big on me, and people are starting to notice that now. I see Jeremy is online with us now too, and actually Jeremy kind of pointed that out to me several weeks ago. We had went out to dinner, and he had pointed out that my shirts were looking a little big, and the smaller shirts were looking better. So yeah, I'm trying to get that in my head, that maybe it's okay for me to get things smaller, but I still have that mental thing where it's like, oh, I don't want anything to be too tight. I don't want anything to look too tight. I still have that comfort feeling of the bagginess, though now the bagginess is starting to make me look a bit like a bag lady, but but it is kind of interesting, like, things shifting around and everything, and just using your clothes to get a feel better than the scale is probably a lot better indicator of where you're at a lot of times.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, I think it's better for almost anybody to use the fit of your clothing. But especially anybody who, number one, has been on vacation, has been going out to eat more, which means they're having more salt. Anyone who's been traveling, weight training, if you've had a surgery or a recent illness, those types of things can so manipulate the scale so easily that the scale is just not the right tool in those cases. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of the scale because I do think it gives us some information that is helpful and useful. And I know that for some people, they hop on the scale every single day and they find that it helps keep them accountable for making right choices. That's great. That's fantastic. But what I see happen a lot that I really try to move people away from is like thinking the scale tells the whole story. Like, for example, a mutual friend of ours has had this happen many times where she's been invited to a dinner or, has gone out to eat or something like that. And then she picks like the best choice that's available to her. And then she gets on the scale next day and she's up 3 pounds. And I've had to have the conversation with her, and she understands it now, but it takes a while to wrap your mind truly around this, where she'll be up 3 pounds and she's like, I picked the best choice, and am I never going to be able to go out to eat again? And, you know, like that kind of thing. And I'm like, listen, if you are going to get on the scale and your weight's going to be up and it's going to totally discourage you, and your brain is going to like shut down and not think rationally, then maybe you need to spend some time off the scale. And I'm saying that as someone who has been there many times. It's not me being like, hey, loser, stop it. You know, it's just like, I know because I've lived it, how much the scale can totally sabotage you. It can make you think that everything you're doing is all wrong, and you're terrible at this and you're never going to lose weight. When in reality, if you stop and think rationally about it, okay, let's say she went out and got tacos, and the taco toppings she chose were beans and pico de gallo and guacamole, okay, on corn tortillas. Let's just say that's her order. She eats that, she's up 3 pounds on the scale the next day. If she, instead of being like so thrown by that number emotionally, if she would stop and think rationally, okay, did I gain 3 pounds of body fat from eating those tacos last night? The obvious answer is no. You have to be somewhere in excess, past your maintenance calories, okay? Not past your weight loss calories, but past your maintenance calories. Somewhere in excess of 3,500 calories extra past your maintenance calories in order to gain 1 pound of body fat. And even that isn't exactly accurate because there's the thermic effect of foods, which means different foods, like we absorb more calories or less calories from different foods. So like beans, even though they may be I'm going off. I'll wrap this up in a second. There's so many different directions I could go with this, but beans, for example, you know, let's say they're 200 calories for a serving of beans, but you're not going to absorb all 200 of those calories because they're also so high in fiber and they're bulky and all of that. And so your body is only going to digest them so much. So maybe you absorb 180 of those calories. You see what I'm saying? So with considering the thermic effect of foods, considering the fact that you'd have to be in excess of 3,500 calories past your maintenance calories in order to gain a pound of body weight, it becomes immediately obvious that she did not gain 3 pounds of body fat in a day. Mm-hmm. But the scale said it, and so now she's got to try to get herself back together and out, like not on the ledge and not upset, not wanting to throw in the towel. And she's like in a bad mood towards her husband or her family. And because she's in such a low, bad mood about the number on the scale, she misses her workout that day. And maybe in the evening, she decides to have some cookies because it's like, why bother? Do you see how derailed we can get from inaccurate information on the scale? Mm-hmm. Whereas if she had gotten up and gone into her closet and pulled on her jeans, she would know actually very little, if any, damage was done, and she could move on with her day. So you got to like treat the scale with the respect that it warrants, which is that you know it is an imperfect tool. It is not good for nothing, but it does not tell the whole story ever. So do not let your feeling of success or failure hinge on what the scale is saying.
Absolutely. Yep. Like there were times, you know, when I was all freaking out about that, and you had to like, you know, give me a shake in the morning and be like, ah.
Yes. Even I still have that sometimes, and I know better. I really, really do. But I still have that moment. And then of course I have to like talk my own self off the ledge, just like I do with my patients. But it's a real problem.
Yeah. I think it's a human problem, right?
Yes.
Let's see. Video 1000 Night says, can Stacy please talk in detail about having your first meal at noon and skipping breakfast? The more detail, the better.
Where did you get that idea? Not from me.
I think
Never
that's
the
intermittent fasting craves has been around for a while. That's basically what you're talking about there.
We do not condone or promote or recommend intermittent fasting. What we are always all about is eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're comfortably full. The number on the clock has nothing to do with it. Now, are there people who intermittent fast and report that they feel great doing it? There are. Okay? Good for them. That's fantastic. But the problem with intermittent fasting is, number one, there's no really good science that backs it up as a useful way to lose weight or get healthier. There's just not. You know, there's people will tell you, oh, there's a study, there's this study. Well, the studies just basically cancel each other out. There's none that really concludes definitively like that is. And by the way, there's very few studies outside of those that confirm that a predominantly plant-based diet is the best diet for avoiding, preventing, and reversing heart disease, diabetes, and other lifestyle-related diets. I mean, lifestyle-related issues, illnesses. Outside of that science that exists, there is very little science to support any other approach, including intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting, if you love it and for whatever reason it helps you feel better, go ahead. But what I always caution people about is a thing that I see all the time, because this is my job every single day, is I have people who are like, oh, I'm intermittent fasting now. And I'm like, great, how do you feel? Oh, I feel great, fantastic. Okay, listen up, honey. If and when you wake up one day, if it's not today, if it's not tomorrow, it's going to happen. You're going to wake up at 7 a.m. starving. And you're going to go, oh no, I'm starving and I still have 5 hours until my eating window. So here are the ways that scenario ends. One, you go, I cannot make it, and you go ahead and eat. And then you feel like you failed. And then you have the risk for the same behaviors that we were just talking about with the scale. When you get on the scale and you see a number you don't like, okay, now I'm in a terrible mood and I'm going to treat everyone around me badly, or I'm going to treat myself badly all day long. I feel low. I have a low mood, low energy because I'm sad. Those two things go hand in hand, by the way. So I'm low, and because of that, I'm going to skip my workout. And then because I'm so depressed about having skipped my workout and broken my fast, I'm going, this day is totally botched. I might as well just have half a cake from Kroger, you know? And the next thing you know, that person has somehow determined that breaking their fast because they were hungry has ruined and derailed all of their positive efforts. That is dangerous, it is problematic, and that is why we don't recommend intermittent fasting. But the other scenario, even if you don't go that direction with it and you don't get completely derailed by the discouragement of breaking your fast, let's say you keep your fast. So it's 7 a.m. Remember, it's 7 a.m. and you're starving and you have 5 hours till lunch. And you go, no, I made a commitment. I'm doing intermittent fasting. So 5 hours it is. And you're sitting there looking at the clock and you're just falling apart internally because you're so hungry, but you make it to noon. Guess what you're going to do? I don't care who you are. I don't care how healthy of a lunch you have prepared for yourself. You will definitely overeat. You will, because that's what happens when we do not listen to and honor our hunger cues. Is our brain starts sending Hail Mary chemical signals out that says, girl, no. We will not let you starve to death. I can see that that's what you're trying to do. We won't allow it. So now here's a whole bunch of extra hunger chemicals and signals, and you're going to eat everything you can get your hands on, as much of it as you can, because it's the only way to ensure your survival. So it's no bueno. It's no bueno at all. Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're comfortably full. Now, if you don't get hungry till noon, go ahead. Okay, go ahead and wait until noon. That's fine. If you don't get hungry till 2 p.m., you can wait until you're hungry. But do not intentionally cut out meals and call it intermittent fasting and think you're doing something positive for yourself. You are not. You're upping the chances of an epic binge later in the day at some point.
Absolutely. And I mean, there are a lot of people who they're not like me. Most of the time, I'm not ready to eat anything until like, noonish or so. But
Right.
also, I may not have necessarily stopped eating at 7 o'clock last night either. Right.
Yep.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, and there's times like when I wake up in the morning and I wake up and I'm just like, wow, I need to eat right now. And other days where I'm just like, take it or leave it, right? So I mean, you are going if you're trying to do that, you are going to hit a day where you wake up and your body is just like, you need to eat right now. It
Right.
happens to
You
everybody.
will.
I mean, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it depends on what you had the night before and all sorts of things, and you
Right.
just never know. So best to
Yeah. Well said.
just eat when you're hungry. Like when I
Mm-hmm.
started just eating when I was hungry, everything just started to work. So, and that's
Yes.
the best thing to do. Beth is here,
Absolutely. Hi,
and
Beth.
Beth says the McDougall 12-day program absolutely changed my life. I went through in May 2022. I've lost 70 pounds, got off all my meds, and have no regrets at all. That's awesome.
Way to go.
It's so good to see you
Yeah.
here, Beth. And Karen has a question for you. Karen says, should I wait until I lose my weight before I add a pita with stone ground wheat, salt, and water? I'm saving my pennies to do the program hopefully next year.
Okay. It depends. That is almost always the answer. It depends. So, is this the same Karen that asked about the weight training?
um, yes.
Well, okay. Oh, great. Okay, perfect. All right. So, Karen, it depends on how much weight you have left to lose because probably if you have this is just me this is me spitballing and giving you numbers, okay? It's not a guarantee, so don't sue me if it doesn't work out this way, okay? But if you have like 30 or more pounds still left to lose, okay, then you probably can get away with eating a pita, no problem, one a day. You probably will be just fine. You will lose weight, and you may find that you need it because of how many calories you're burning weight training and walking. Okay. Now, Karen, if you have 5 or 10 pounds left to lose, you may not be able to eat a pita. It is more calorie dense. So, bread products are usually around 1,400 calories per pound, give or take. And that's much, much higher than the water-rich cooked starches we talked about, with potatoes at about 400 calories per pound, cooked oatmeal about 325, and beans and rice usually around 550 to 650 calories per pound. So you can see that pita bread is much more calorie dense. Towards the end of your weight loss journey, you may find that you have to abstain from dry starches completely. 5-10 pounds usually is where that happens, maybe sometimes 15 pounds left to lose, and you need to just call it quits for a bit on those. But the only way you're going to know the answer to that question is trial and error. So you do it, you eat the pita, and then you pay attention to what's happening with either the scale or your clothing. If your clothing is getting looser, then that's a good indication that the pita bread is just fine. If your clothing is getting tighter, that's a good indication that it may be a little bit too calorie dense for what you're trying to do, which is lose weight. If your clothes are staying the same, then pita bread will probably be okay for you to include during maintenance from time to time. But you're not trying to maintain, you're trying to lose weight. So you probably want to just feel your clothes over time getting looser.
Yeah, so much of what we do, it seems like, is trial and error because everybody's different, right? Everybody's body
Yes.
composition is different and things like that. Portobello Rowe has a question. How much water should we be drinking per day?
Well, Dr. McDougall had a very clear opinion on this, which was you should be drinking as much as it takes to satisfy your thirst drive. Now, I did not disagree with him. I agreed with him completely about that. I think it's totally true, especially eating the way that we eat. Our foods are very high in water content. So it's a little bit harder. Like an American out there who's eating, uh, chicken fingers and macaroni and cheese and, you know, those types of things are not very water rich like plants are. And so they may really need some guidance about taking in more water, especially to compensate for the high sodium levels in their diet. In our case, you really can trust your thirst drive. The problem is that many of us over many years have ignored our thirst drive long enough that we are no longer in touch with what the thirst drive feels like. So I really encourage you at the beginning of this transformation journey that you are taking here, eating this way, living this lifestyle, you need to be really taking time to pay attention to your body and start to get back in touch with your hunger and fullness drives and your thirst drive. So it feels different for different people, the thirst drive. For me, I start to get sort of like I start like salivating, right? Like I'm thirsty. And I get a really interesting little like aching feeling back here, kind of like by my ears, which I've shared with lots of people. And I've never once had anyone say, yeah, me too. That's how it feels to me too. No one has ever confirmed that they feel that. So maybe it is just me, but that's where I feel it. I feel sort of thirsty there. And but it's probably different for you, so you've got to start paying attention. And as long as you are drinking water when you're thirsty, then you should be okay. Also, the good old-fashioned pee test, which is you look at your urine and you look at the color. It should be like a light yellow color, not clear. And if it is clear, don't panic. That's fine. You're just drinking a lot of water. You probably can get away with less if it's clear. But you want it to be almost clear, really, really, really light yellow. That's a good indication, good old-fashioned way to tell if you are dehydrated or not. So another thing for a lot of people is a lot of people have chronic headaches, or at least very often will have a headache, and they don't know that it's because they're not drinking enough water. I can tell you, I know many people who have gone decades with chronic headaches because they didn't know they were chronically dehydrated. So give that a try. If you're a headache person, start upping your water and seeing if it makes a difference. But the reason why I mention that is a headache, a light little beginning of an onset of a headache, a lot of times can be an indication that you need water. That can be part of your thirst drive. And so for me, if I start to feel a little headachy, I go ahead and just pound some water. And 9 times out of 10, that knocks it right out and the headache never really develops. So that's a little tip to try. But yeah, there's not a number. I'm sorry. There's not a, you see them all the time out there. People always recommending, oh, you need to have as many ounces as your weight times 2, or you need to have 8 glasses a day. And all of that, again, is taking the focus off of your individual body and giving you an arbitrary number that's based on the entire population, which doesn't necessarily apply to you, and having you hit it rather than putting you back inside your body and back in touch with your own body's signals.
I had somebody tell me one time that you want your pee to look like a light Chardonnay and not motor oil.
That's accurate.
So I always shoot for that. And it's interesting because I do drink a lot of water. And it's interesting when I go through a day where I may not have had a lot of water, I really can tell. Like it's very obvious. So yeah, definitely pee test, always a good way to tell.
Yeah.
And let's see. SFOS says, the program is worth every penny. Got to goal, been there over 1 year. Thank you, Dr. McDougall and Stacy. If you can swing it, do it.
Awesome.
And Jeremy has a question for you, Stacy.
Okay.
Jeremy says, I started eating plain cooked potatoes and I'm maintaining my weight. Does that mean I'm doing it right? What changes to body composition should I look for?
Well, I don't know what Jeremy's goals are. Do you know what his goals are? Is he trying to lose weight?
Jeremy doesn't really look like he needs to lose a lot of weight to me. He's very athletic. And so
Okay.
And he has good muscle
All right.
structure. So yeah, I mean, Jeremy, let us know in the comments what your current goal is. I know that for a little bit he felt like he was eating out a little bit too much and might have had a little bit to lose, but he it,
Yeah.
he never looks overweight to me. So
Well, and honestly, like even our assessment about, oh, he doesn't look overweight, like every individual has to live in their own body. I work with people all the time who go, I'm a normal weight, I'm a healthy weight, but I don't feel right. And especially if they've recently weighed less, they know their sweet spot. And so Jeremy will have to be the one to answer that question. Oh, he wants to lose about 20 pounds. Okay, if you're staying the same weight and your question is, am I doing it right? You're doing maintenance beautifully, beautifully. But for weight loss, you're going to need to be lower on the calorie density scale. So I hope I'm not making, and correct me, Jeremy, if this is wrong, but it sounds like you're eating just potatoes. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to start to incorporate vegetables like non-starchy veggies and some fruit, because non-starchy veggies and fruit are much lower in calorie density than potatoes, and incorporating them and making them around half of your intake of food and the other half potatoes, for example, will help you begin to see the scale move, because you'll be taking in fewer calories while still enjoying the same amount of food, if not more. See, that is the hack. That's the master hack of this way of eating, is that we're never going to ask you to eat less food. We do ask that you eat more strategically. That's what your support specialist is there to help you with. So, so anyway, that's kind of how you would drive that calorie density down.
so I had the mute on. Sorry.
That's okay.
And Jeremy says, "In my home, or is that an AI background?" Yes, I'm home for a short period of time, and then we are off again. Laura says, "Please talk about the importance or not of sticking to one program, i.e., McDougall. By the way, Stacy, your hair looks so cute like that."
Thank you. That's so kind. Thank you. Laura, you hit the nail on the head, honey. Thank you for bringing that up. It's very important that you stick with one program. And that's what I tell people all the time. Listen, you are never going to find us out here dumping on any of the other plant-based doctors ever, because I think by and large, all of the major plant-based doctors and nutritionists all have like great hearts and great, brilliant minds and lots of science to back up their stance. And much more often than not, they agree. Okay. But then there are finer details that they can disagree about. A great example of that is Joel Furman. Love him. Eat to Live. Hey, I've got the book. Okay. We are not anti Joel Furman. We love him. He's wonderful. If you follow his diet recommendations completely and you're happy living on those, don't change a thing. If you're happy, all of your biometric numbers are coming back good, and you are happily making your way to your goal weight, or you're at your goal weight or something like that, perfect. Stick with it. As my patients know, a lot of them are here right now, so they're going to roll their eyes probably as I say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it's working for you, stick with it, okay? But absolutely right, Laura. You really want to pick one and kind of put your blinders on. That doesn't mean you follow blindly. You don't check your brain at the door. You still have a brain and you still use your own good, beautiful judgment that you've been given. But you do just pick a trusted voice and stick with it. Because when you start mixing and matching and pulling this and pulling that, the more rules that you try to follow, the more likely you are to fall on your face. And the way that Jeff Novick, our dietitian for our program, the little illustration that he always often presents is, it's like running around a track. Okay, you're running around track. Let's say you choose that your track is the McDougall diet. Okay, and you're just running in circles, and we're telling you just eat fruits, vegetables, and minimally processed whole plant foods as much as you can. avoid oil, avoid all animal products, and you just run that track. You're running your race around the track, right? Well, let's say you watch a Dr. Greger video that's like, you really need to be eating 2 tablespoons of cocoa every day. Okay, I'm just making this up, okay? Well, suddenly that's a hurdle that you've put on the track that you now have to jump every time you come around. You got to jump the hurdle. I don't know when the last time you guys went out and did a hurdle workout on a track, but I know you put one hurdle in there, I'm down. If not the very first jump, at least by the second or third, because I'm not a good jumper and hurdles are incredibly challenging for someone like me at my age and all of that. Okay, so you've got your cocoa hurdle. Well, then you hear from Joel Furman that you really need to be eating lots of mushrooms. Okay, well, believe it or not, that's another hurdle. Okay, well, I need to have mushrooms every day, and so I've got to make my way to the store, and if I don't have mushrooms, I kind of feel like a failure because that's part of what I'm trying to do. So now you've got the cocoa, you've got the mushrooms. All right, you're running your race, you're having to jump over 2 hurdles and not fall on your face, and if you're doing that, I'm amazed, okay? It's not going to last. You can't just keep on jumping over hurdles, right? So you're running, and then all of a sudden you hear from Dr. Esselstyn. Again, brilliant, wonderful person. But he said you need to have 6 servings of greens every single day. Uh-oh, that's a big hurdle, isn't it? Because you've got to obtain the greens, you've got to cook them, you got to remember to have them, you got to spend a lot of money and a lot of time getting your 6 servings of greens in. There's another hurdle. So you guys see what I'm saying? So what you do is when you pick one way, you immediately automatically minimize the number of hurdles in your way. And do not, by the way, put a hurdle up for yourself that we have not put up for you. It's like the person who asked earlier about, tell me about starting, like skipping breakfast and eating at noon. You heard me. I immediately said, who told you to do that? It wasn't me. It wasn't us. Because we just want you to just eat the food and just practice eating the food. That is enough. That is enough. You don't need to put up any other hurdles. Please don't put up hurdles that we have not put up for you.
Well, and I can speak from my experience. That I was always trying to mix and match and make up my own thing, and it just never worked. It just it would be okay for a little bit, and then then I would just start. It would just start all going to hell again. So I just feel like keeping the basics of the plan and just always going back to those basics just seems to work. So I'm just kind of sticking with it. And I don't always eat no oil or things like that, but I know the effects that it's going to have, and so I try to limit that as much as I can and things like that. But it's just like always go back to the main points, right? You just always go back to the main basics, and it always writes you right back up every time. So.
Well, and Cheryl, you bring up a really important point, which is we're not trying to do this perfectly. Exactly. We're trying to become as consistent as we can be. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean never, ever, ever veering off the reservation for a meal. It doesn't mean that. What it means is that, okay, consistency is very important. Mm-hmm. And so I will do this and follow this and eat the right things as consistently as possible. Mm-hmm. Not expecting perfection, because the minute that you start being a perfectionist about all this, it creates a whole nother kind of hurdle, which is when you fall short of that, which you always will, because we aren't perfect, and mm-hmm. we certainly don't live in a perfect environment that is set up for our success at all. You will fall on your face, you will make a mistake, and if you view it from the viewpoint of, hey, I'm not trying to do this perfectly, I'm just trying to be as consistent as I can be, so whoops, oh well, that's okay, moving on, right back to the basics, like you say, right back to your home base mm-hmm. of the McDougall diet, then no harm done, right? Whereas if you're expecting perfection of yourself, and you veer off and you eat something that's not on plan, then suddenly you have broken your promise to yourself. You have veered away from perfection and you have failed. And there's nothing more sabotaging than thinking that you've failed. Most people do not take the next best step when they're sitting there feeling bad about themselves and like they have fallen off their plan. So you've got to start seeing this with eyes that are less judgy, for one thing, because we're all just out here doing our best. So don't judge yourself to that extreme of expecting perfection. And just start to see it like, hey, my job is always just trying to get more consistent than I was the day before. That's it.
And the faster you can get your mind to wrap around that you don't have to be perfect in everything, and you can still be successful without beating yourself up, and it makes you become successful so much faster. Once you wrap your head around the point that it's, and you get to that point, it's like everything just kind of clicks into place, and then when you're not beating yourself up, you're not upset with yourself, you're not sad, you're not all these other things that would typically make you go towards food for something goes away, right? And then you're just like enjoying yourself and staying on plan and not being perfect. Right. Sometimes not being perfect is the answer.
It is the answer. And also, like, you're going to have to, a lot of people expect, oh, well, I made a mistake and I learned a lesson. And so that lesson is learned and I will never make that kind of mistake again. And it's like, no, sometimes on anything that you master, let's say you're trying to learn how to play the piano or whatever, paint or something, you will always have times in your forward progress where you go, whoops, I totally forgot how to find G sharp or whatever. Y'all, you can tell how not musical I am. I don't know what I'm talking about, but you get my point. You're gonna hit a point where you're like, oh man, I don't really actually remember how to do that. And you will go back. You will go back and revisit lessons that you already learned, because even when you learn a lesson, it's not always right here. Sometimes you will stumble on the same things. As long as you're always trying to get yourself to the next step of learning and growing, then that's all we can ask.
Yeah, exactly. And Caroline says, yes to the program. I so appreciate the support and community as well. Apart from it working, I'm down more than 40 pounds now. And Beth says, I've gone back to using the Happy Scale app. I am back to inputting my weight daily, but the app calculates a 10-day moving average, which is what I consider my weight to be on any given day.
Yes, I like that. I also, Fitbit does that. If anybody has Fitbit, and I'm sure Apple Watch can do that, but it will give you the average for the week, which is actually a much better, more accurate, not more accurate, but a better, like, more holistic view of your week and how it's gone than any individual reading.
Yeah, and I think one time you told me it's the general trend is what we're looking at, not these ups and downs and ups and downs. We're looking at the general trend of things. So.
Yeah, because everybody wants their weight loss to go like this. Wouldn't that be nice?
And it's not realistic at all, because your body does this weird thing, stair-steppy thing that we have no control over.
This. Right, but what we do want to see is we want to see the stair-steppy thing slowly moving down. That's what we mean when we say trending down. Yeah.
Portobello Rose says, do we need leucine high foods for muscle?
No. Yeah. Just eat your fruits, vegetables, and water-rich cooked starches. Beans, whole grains, and legumes are really good for building muscle because they are higher in protein. Now, having said that, everybody's worried about protein all the time. Okay, if you are concerned about if you're getting enough protein, do not be concerned and do not panic. just go spend a day plugging your food into chronometer. I never can figure out how that's supposed to be
Yeah,
pronounced. But anyway,
either
that one.
or.
Yeah, who cares? Plug your food in there and just see where you are. But the other thing I tell people is, hey, if you want more protein because you're really hitting the gym hard and you're really building a bunch of muscle and stuff, just eat more beans. Take advantage of beans and legumes and whole grains, and it's going to be all right. I mean, I can't even tell you how many people I know personally, including myself, where I didn't count protein grams at all whatsoever. And I have physical, obvious, visible muscle growth in the gym. No problem at all whatsoever. Not only can you feel it and see the difference and feel the difference, when I go and have my in-body scan at the gym, which I do every 3 months just to see what's going on, my lean body mass, which is your muscle mass, is up. Starting about midlife and beyond, your lean muscle mass goes down every year. If left to its own devices, we lose muscle. And as we get older, that's called sarcopenia. It is a major problem, guys. Major, very major. It's responsible for like many falls, lots and lots of balance issues and problems, steadiness and all of that. It's a real problem, sarcopenia. Weight training is the solution to sarcopenia. Okay. And so if you can get in the gym and build some muscle, you can avoid sarcopenia, and you can have your muscle increase rather than what it would naturally do on its own, which is decrease with each passing year. But you do not need to go to great lengths to get a certain amount of protein to do that. I am living proof that you can build muscle without intentionally seeking out a whole bunch of protein. I just eat beans and legumes and whole grains.
There we go. I was like, why is this
There.
not working? Yeah, I'm still not sure where I fall on the whole massive amounts of protein stuff. So I'm not even going to put a comment in there. I'm just kind of neutral on the whole subject. So
Yeah, it's fine. That's fine.
I'm getting enough. My hair's not falling out. I'm not not having any of the issues that are signs of a protein deficiency. So I'm just living my best life. So.
Well, that's exactly right. Like everybody kind of needs to stay in their own business about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and if you're bothered or you're worried, you can always just add more protein rich plant foods. You do not need to start eating meat in order to get enough protein ever. Right. Not necessary.
And CE asks, is there a lower limit on a healthy amount of calories to consume daily? Like, would 1,200 calories a day be considered too low on a whole food plant-based diet?
Depends entirely on the person. I mean, that is so, like, no one, and anybody who tries to pretend like they can tell you the answer to that, run away, because they can't. The only person who could probably give you a little bit of an idea is a nutritionist that is meeting directly with only you, or your support specialist if you come through the program, or Dr. Lim, or Jeff Novick, our dietitian. Those are the only people who have any business telling you that, because it takes into your calorie, like what would be a lower limit or an unhealthy number of calories for you to consume in a day, are very dependent on your age, your height, your sex. Women burn fewer calories than men. Your activity level, your muscle mass. There's so many factors that go into that. 1,200 calories, while probably too low for most people, there are little bitty women who are past menopause and are very tiny, who that actually might be an okay number. But the good news is this, is that your body very nicely regulates your appetite in step with what your caloric needs are. And so if you are a teeny tiny little woman, your appetite is going to be less than a larger woman or a man who's in the gym pumping iron all the time. this is yet another check in the column of please go do some weight training, because the other awesome hack that you can employ here is that muscle burns lots of calories. It's metabolically very active, so it eats up a bunch of calories. So you get to eat more food when you have more muscle. The more muscle on your body, the more calories you burn at rest or doing anything at all whatsoever. So yet another tick in the column of go ahead and start the weight training or resistance training.
I got to keep remembering that, because I'm always like, oh, I don't really want to do that, but I really do need to do that because there's so many benefits to it that I really should start incorporating that in more. And Mary says, she asks, sometimes I wonder I am eating too many potatoes or beans. I eat a lot because that's what I need to feel satiated. Is there such a thing as eating too much on this plan?
There is such a thing as eating too much on the plan, but it doesn't sound like that's what you're doing, because you followed up by saying it's what I need to feel satiated. And that's what we're going for. We're going for satiety. Okay, now having said that, if you don't also consume fruits and vegetables, it could be that that calorie density of just eating beans and potatoes might be a little too high for you to lose weight. And so the way that you change things around is you add in non-starchy veggies, you add in some fruits, you decrease your intake of your starchy side of things. So fewer beans, fewer potatoes, as you take in an abundance of fruits and vegetables. And that will automatically, naturally drive your calorie intake for the day lower without you having to go hungry or without you having to give up any volume of food.
That's very good information. I am reading ahead on some of these comments, and Karen was saying, thank you, Stacy. She's at the end of her journey, so she'll stay away from dried starches, looks forward to this program each month. And Caroline says that she gets pressure in her ears when she's thirsty. So that's interesting.
Yeah, you never know.
Jeremy says he wished he was eating just potatoes.
Oh, okay. So Jeremy was the one who was asking about if his weight is staying the same, is he doing it just right? And I was saying, well, are you only eating potatoes? Okay.
So he's not eating just potatoes.
Well, it sounds like, so other things are sneaking in. So in order to assess, are you doing it right? We'd have to work very closely. You would have to send me your food log and all that stuff. And so Jeremy, just come through the program. Just do the program. I can help you with all of that. Or, have someone who can help you sit down and keep, I highly encourage people, if you haven't done it before, keep a log of your food for a couple of days, an honest log of everything you eat and drink. Because even just the act of writing down your food for a couple of days is oftentimes very illuminating. You can almost immediately see why it is that the scale might not be moving. We are always in a hurry. This is life, unfortunately, in our culture, is like one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And we're not paying attention to when we're just like popping a piece of candy in or having an extra bagel or what, you know what I mean? And so just the act of writing down your food for a couple days really could possibly illuminate for you what exactly the issue is.
Yeah. I think also another thing that was always hard for me to remember, and I still struggle with this sometimes, is as you lose weight, you don't need as much food. And yet our brain keeps trying to tell us we need the same amount we needed 40 pounds ago. And it's not true.
Well, your brain, though, isn't telling you that. What's happening is you are in a habit of eating. The example I gave the other day on our YouTube, because I was on with Heather on the McDougall YouTube a couple weeks ago. And the example I gave was, if you always make yourself 3 tacos for lunch, bean tacos, right? Like we were talking about earlier. And you've always eaten 3, you are in a habit of eating 3 bean tacos every day for lunch. And so let's say you've lost 50 pounds And people tell us all the time, like, "Oh, I'm eating the same stuff I always ate, but I'm not losing weight anymore." Well, that's because you're in a lighter body, which burns fewer calories
Mhm.
than it did when it was 50 pounds heavier. And so you have to be willing to experiment with what will happen if I try eating 2 tacos instead. It's possible that your body will go, girl, get the other taco, Or what if I eat 2 tacos and a side of broccoli instead of 3 tacos? You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So you have to be very intentional because your brain actually does down regulate your appetite in step with your lowered caloric needs as you get lighter. But the difference is very subtle and it's very hard to discern unless you're paying very close attention. And so that's why I tell people you have to be very intentional to try to eat differently. Add in those non-starchy veggies, take away some of the starches that you're eating, and see if you're just as satisfied. If you're not, you can always go back for more food. You're never going to go hungry, but it's an experiment that you have to intentionally run because most of us just aren't so aware of the subtle differences in our appetite as our bodies change.
Yeah. And then some of the comments the folks were just talking about when you were talking about sticking to one plan kind of thing. And they were talking about, Beth was saying in the Furman example, he recommends far more nuts and far less starch. So she was thinking if a person was to eat starch like a McDougall and nuts like a Furman follower, that might spell trouble. And I think that's kind of
Yep.
the whole basis of sticking with one and not jumping around, because that's what I used to do. I'd be like, oh, well, I can eat like, okay, there's this whole thing, especially as somebody that's diabetic, that I've always found that like over time, you can either eat high fat and low carb, or you can eat high carb and low fat. But you can't combine those into something that you think is this magic combo of both, because it doesn't work. Now, it might work for some bodies, right? But for mine, it was like you either pick one or the other, or else my body is going to rebel, right? And I've had more success with the high carb, low fat than I had when I was eating lots of fatty meats and then staying away from carbs, right?
Right.
I feel better.
Yeah.
I don't feel as weighed down. I don't feel as tired. I feel well-rounded, I guess, is kind of what I want to say. And I feel like now if you start, and that was between meat and not meat, right? But now it's like if I was to start dabbling around and adding in all these different, Dr. Greger says I need to have all these things, Dr. Furman says this, and I try to start making my own thing out of all those others, I feel like I'm going to run into the exact same problem where everything then stops working as efficiently. Because now I'm tweaking what actually, I'm making up my own thing. So,
yeah.
And a lot of people were saying, they were saying their weight would go up again if they started combining all those others.
Yeah, and we see it all the time. Oftentimes people, when they come to us to start the program, that's exactly what they've done. They've been piecemealing together a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And shoot, I would love it if that worked. If I could eat as many nuts and seeds and nut butters as I wanted, and also as much oatmeal and potatoes as I wanted, and, all the avocado I wanted in the world, plus all the fruit that I want. It's like, that'd be great. That would be fantastic. But you're right. Now I could go off, we could have a whole conversation, and maybe next time I come, we can, about the whole high carb, low fat, or high fat, low carb, because there are a lot of other considerations. And you're right. Everybody has a choice. I'm never hating on the high fat people, but I do think that it's a short-sighted approach, because you will lose weight, you will see better blood glucose numbers, but are you actually solving the problem that is diabetes? And What else are you doing to your body in the meantime as you try to reverse your diabetes? You
Yep.
know, so that's a whole different conversation. We can have literally a whole show about that, and
Yeah.
I would have enough words to fill 2 hours. So
Absolutely.
that's a
Absolutely.
big one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And let's see. And Beth was saying that the thing that she loved most about Dr. McDougall and how he taught was the way that he kept it so simple. And I think that's, I think a lot of people, for a lot of people, that simplicity, it's just so few things to remember, right? And so we can always just go back to the basics so easy, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. You know, that really did set him apart from his colleagues. And
Mm-hmm.
they're all wonderful, brilliant people. All the people that I mentioned before, plus more, they're wonderful. We highly respect them. But the simplicity, you know, Dr. McDougall just wanted people to get well. And he understood that, hey, actually, just a very simple diet with very few rules will take you almost all the way.
Yep.
And then at the end, let's say you lose all your weight and you're healthy and all these things, and you decide, okay, now I've read all the health benefits of dried goji berries and walnuts. Go ahead and incorporate them and keep an eye on your weight and make sure it doesn't get out of hand. Go ahead. But what Dr. McDougall did, that I respect so much, and I try to make it central to my practice as a nurse and as a support specialist for the McDougall program, is you fix the first thing that needs fixing first. So, you know, when people come to me and they're like, oh, I know that nuts and seeds are so super healthy, like I should probably be eating them, and I'm really worried about eliminating them. I'm like, listen, babe, you have 50 pounds to lose. Right now, that is the lowest hanging fruit in your life. That is the thing we have got to attack first, because that puts you at risk for 15, 16, 20 different chronic diseases. And you probably have a few of them already. So we need to get the weight off of you first. And one of the most efficient things that you can do to get weight off of you is just stop eating nuts and seeds and nut butters because of how incredibly calorie dense they are. Knock them out. I'm not telling you never to eat them ever again and experience health benefits from them. But I'm saying right now, your biggest problem is not lack of vitamin E. Your biggest problem is that you need to lose these 50 pounds to save your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Justine was saying, what is your best advice for when you're feeling nibbly but not really hungry? Should you eat or try to distract yourself until you're actually hungry?
I find that apples are great for that.
Mm-hmm.
Go cut up an apple and eat an apple. You're never going to hear me tell you that the only circumstance under which you should eat is when you're really hungry. No. And I'll tell you why. Because if you go and eat an apple or you go and eat a potato, what is the worst that could happen? I promise you are not going to gain weight. And I almost promise that you're not going to not lose weight eating an apple or a potato. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to spoil your dinner. Really, that is really the worst thing that's going to happen. If you're choosing a water-rich cooked starch, a fruit or a veggie, and you're eating that in between meals because you're feeling nibbly and not truly, truly hungry, I don't have a problem with that, because it just means you're going to probably take in less at your next meal, or you may delay your next meal, but it's not a problem. The problem when people get nibbly is that because they're not truly hungry and they're only just trying to entertain their taste buds, they get into the Doritos or the Oreos or the nuts or the whatever. That is obviously going to be a problem. That is obviously going to keep the weight on you. But if you're choosing whole plant foods, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. And Beth was asking for Stacy, on the opposite side of the fence from perfectionism, what would you say about the problem of getting a little too loosey-goosey with higher calorie density choices?
So it's sort of like what I was saying to Jeremy earlier about keeping a food log, is that it is amazing how often we can just completely deceive ourselves and lie to ourselves. We can sit there and be like, oh, I just eat whole food plant based all the time. And it's always the water rich cooked starches and fruits and veggies. And until you actually sit there and come face to face with what you're actually eating, it's amazing how we can really believe we're doing the program really well. And why isn't the weight loss happening? Well, it's because we do. We get too loosey goosey. We make exceptions. Back in my Weight Watchers days, they used to talk about BLTs, bites, licks, and tastes all the time, and that those count. If you're sitting there making dinner for your family and you're eating, a bunch of whatever, like extra bread or extra pasta, or you're making cookies for your kids and you're licking the bowl and brownies and all that stuff, all of that counts. That all counts. And
Yeah.
we tend to forget about that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
Beth, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I agree with you that the food log really helps, because I'll sit there and go, well, I don't know what happened this week, because I've just been eating like I normally do, but then I realize there's a half a loaf of bread gone.
Exactly.
Bread is my problem. And so if I don't pay attention, I eat way too much bread, and every time that's where it is.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
This is great. I feel like a lot of people have had questions this time.
Yeah.
This has been nice.
And Video 1000 Night says, I feel like I want to eat more when I get thinner some of the time.
Wait. What? I was trying so hard to understand.
So I think when we were talking about when you lose weight, you need to eat less because your body doesn't need as much. And then Video 1000 Nights was saying, I sincerely feel like I want to eat more the thinner I get.
Okay. Let's talk about that for a second. Okay. All right. Well, there is a line. Okay. It's a big, convoluted, complex scientific issue, but I'm going to keep it up here for all of us because it's just much easier to stay up here with it. But here's this, okay? And you can Google Dr. McDougall set point to read his article on set point, which is this, you've probably heard of it before, where your body, each person's individual body has an ideal weight that they want to be. And it's very hard to move your weight really substantially below the set point because your genetics, your body structure, all of that determines basically approximately what you should weigh. It's why you can put me next to another woman who's 5'5" and her set weight is like 145 and mine is 130. Or somebody right next to us might be 115. Like that accounts for the differences in our bodies. You can't always just look at someone next to you and go, well, I want to be 115 pounds like they are. It's like you may not genetically be set up to be 115 pounds, and that's fine. Okay. If you go below your body's set point, which is really just your body's preferred weight, then you start to experience some hormonal changes, including a decrease in leptin. Leptin is a hormone that your brain releases that is in, very simply stated, it is released when your body assesses that you do not have enough fat stores to maintain your set point, your ideal weight. And so that leptin the leptin is responsible for saying, we have plenty of fat stores, everything is fine, all is well. And so your body excretes leptin to signal that. But if you have gone below your set point and your body feels like your brain feels like you might starve, it will release less leptin. You will have very little leptin, which your body interprets as hunger. And so your hunger will be high. Your appetite will be high because your brain has released very little leptin. You can think of leptin as like your satiety hormone. Okay, so if leptin equals satiety, then low leptin would be equal hunger. Okay, and so it could be in the case of this young lady that just asked this question that she's getting a little too low for her brain's liking in body fat. And so her brain is now scaling way back on its leptin production to try to stimulate her appetite to get her to eat more. So sorry, that was like, I know that was a long explanation and I made it much shorter than I could have, believe me. But that's what that is. And it does happen. And it's your body's efforts to try to keep you near that ideal body weight, that ideal like set point for your body.
And I know we are coming on close to time that we need to wrap up for the day. Video
Okay.
1000 Nights said, Stacy, thank you for the details on the first meal at noon. It was very helpful.
Good.
And Beth had, we'll do Beth's little question here. It seems to be the last question. Actually, no. We have another one
That's
after
okay.
that. We'll
we can
see
take a couple questions.
Okay.
If you have time, Cheryl, that works for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beth says, Stacy, don't we also need to consider working on our eating for non-hunger reasons? If I'm trusting my body, already hunger enough, I also should not be eating recreationally and expect good results.
Yes. I mean, you're definitely right about that. Having said that, though, remember you've got to prioritize what's the biggest problem. And for most people, and I'm talking like 99% of people, the problem is the foods that they're eating, what the actual food is. It's not, oh, I'm eating when I'm sad, I'm eating when I'm happy, I'm eating late at night, I'm eating in the morning, I'm not intermittent fasting. All the different variable ways and styles of when and if you eat are not the issue. The issue is the food. Now, I happen to know that Beth has the food down. So for her, yes, it is important to address recreational eating and, really avoid doing that ever, for sure. Having said that, though, if you don't have the food down, if you're still like ending up in the drive-through a couple times a week, or you can't get over ice cream, or you can't get over cheese, or whatever, that's what you need to put all of your energy into. I don't actually really care if you're sad and that's why you're eating a potato and broccoli. I don't care. It doesn't, I'm fine with that. If it makes you feel a little better, that's okay. At some point down the line, we could begin to address that, and we should probably at some point. But initially, you just want to be choosing the correct foods, and we'll get to that later.
And Video 1000 Nights has one more question for you. With hunger cues, are there any benefits of allowing true hunger or substantial hunger, at least occasionally, versus always full and quickly eating at first hint of hunger? How hungry should we get?
Always full and eating at the first hint of hunger are not things promoted by the McDougall program. So wherever that came from, it is not me. It is not us. Okay, always full is not a state that you should be in. No, you shouldn't. Hunger is a natural part of the rhythm of your day to make sure that you get the fuel that you need to keep living and doing everything that you want to do. So we want you to get hungry, but we don't want you to get hungry to the point where you can't make good choices. And for some of us, that happens that the time we have between, oh, I'm a little hungry, and oh my gosh, I'm eating the wallpaper off the wall. That time frame between those two is different for everyone. And for some people, it's very short. So I would encourage you to see it this way. When you get that first little inkling that, oh, I might be hungry soon, go ahead right then and think about what you're going to eat. Okay? What am I going to have? I may not be eating right now because I'm not quite there yet, but I do need to, while I'm in my rational mind enough, I'm not too hungry to make a good choice. What am I going to have? And do I have everything in place? Is it here? Can I prepare it easily and quickly? Oftentimes, I encourage people like, hey, if in that moment you have not made a plan and you don't have food ready, that's when you go and just go ahead and do like the first step of preparing it or getting it. Let's say you're out, you're not at home and you're out. Okay, then the question at that moment where you start to feel a little bit hungry is, number one, can I wait till I get home? Well, if the answer is no, I can't wait till I get home, then you start thinking, what is out here in the world that I can get that will align with my goals? And make your plan right then. What you do not want to do is wait till you're ravenous or super duper hungry to start planning. That never goes well because all of a sudden, a bacon double cheeseburger or you name it, a Beyond Burger or whatever, go over to the drive-through at what's that place? Burger King, I think, has an Impossible Burger or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all of a sudden that starts sounding like a really good idea if you've gotten too hungry. So plan your meal when you're not very hungry, but you don't need to eat until you're feeling true hunger. You're not going to always get it right. You are going to miss the mark often at first, and less often the longer you keep at it. That is not a problem. It's not a deal breaker, especially like I said, if you're choosing the right foods, if you're choosing good whole plant foods, then again, it just pushes off when you need to have your next meal. That's something that Dr. Lyle, I want to give him credit. That is something that I learned from him many years ago. Dr. Doug Lyle, who is our psychologist for the McDougall program, taught me and has taught many of our patients, hey, let's not make it this big darn deal. If I'm not actually really super hungry, but I go ahead and eat mashed potatoes anyway, what's going to happen? Well, you're not going to gain a bunch of weight. What's going to happen is that your next meal will just be delayed. You just won't need to eat as soon as you would have otherwise. Big deal. It's not a problem. So let's not make these things a bigger deal than they really are in the huge scheme of things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mary says, thank you for being here, Stacy. Much appreciated. And Beth says, thank you, Stacy. Very helpful way of looking at emotional / recreational, gosh, I can't talk today, eating and where it fits as a priority. And let's see, and Consuelo for health, welcome, says, I am vegetarian, but the doctor just told me I am anemic. So,
well, so I can't give you medical advice here on YouTube, but your doctor probably will have, a plan for you, whether that be supplementation or just changing what you're eating. So prioritizing high iron foods. You always want to eat your high iron foods with vitamin C. Vitamin C aids in the absorption of iron. But there's different kinds of anemia. So I don't want to assume that means, you just need to eat some more spinach. It's going to be something that you're going to work through with your doctor. But I want to make this very clear. You do not have to turn to meat to get enough iron. You do not. People who eat meat get anemia too. Sometimes it's a genetic predisposition for anemia. Sometimes there's a source of bleeding. That's something Dr. McDougall used to tell people all the time. You want to rule out those things. And then you can make substantial change impact with diet. But in some cases, your doctor may recommend that you supplement with supplemental iron. And that is up to you and your doctor to decide together if that's the appropriate move for you.
Yeah. Exactly. Always trust your doctor on stuff like that. They've got your blood work. They know all those things. So. Let's see. It is 2:20. Is there anything else, Stacy, that you would like to leave everyone with today?
Well, just keep on going, everybody. It's worth it. Just Just try to take the next best step in your health journey, your food and your diet journey. Think about what could I do better that might move the needle a little bit, and do that. It doesn't have to be all at once. It doesn't have to be perfect, like we said. Just continuing to believe in yourself and believe that you're worth it. You are. I guess I can leave you with this one other thing. I recently have come in contact with a close acquaintance who is really not doing well, like having some major health crises right now. And she is in her 70s and is really just struggling with a lot of regret about not taking care of herself all of her life, and now really suffering the consequences of that. But the conversation I had with her was, hey, you know what? Actually, it's never too late. It's never too late. I can't believe how many people I talk to who are in their 60s, even 50s sometimes, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and just say, oh, I would have really loved to take care of myself and eat better and sleep better and exercise better. But, I'm now 70 and I'm now 80. What difference is it going to make? And I'm here to tell you, as Dr. McDougall used to always say famously, your body is always trying to heal itself. And so your job is to give it the best of what you've got. And we don't sit there and live in regret like, oh, I wish I had known this sooner. So do I. I think we all do wish we had known this sooner. But don't let that keep you from making your moves forward with the information that you know now. As we know better, we do better. Believe in yourself. Believe in the power of your body. It is true. Your body's always trying to heal itself. Think about it. Animals out in nature, they sprain an ankle, they get a cut, they're out there. It's not like they have a little squirrel doctor or a little deer doctor out there in the woods that prescribes them a bunch of meds and that's how they get better. They tend to their wounds. Because they're eating their natural diet and they're resting when they need to and they're getting up and moving when they need to, instinctively, they're doing all those things and they heal. Why should it be any different for us? It shouldn't. We are also animals. Yes, we're amazing, incredible animals, but we are still animals and our bodies are made for healing. And so just believe in your body's ability to heal, and then you equip your body with all the very best tools that you possibly can to enable and enhance your healing process.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to go on a mini lecture, but I did do that.
No,
sorry.
Look, sometimes we all need to hear those mini lectures, even if we don't think we need to. Yeah. Sometimes they're very helpful. And then when you get into a little pickle or you're starting to feel a little something or some kind of way, then you'll hear a little Stacy's voice in the back of your head saying stuff, and then you'll go, what would Stacy say? So,
yeah.
So, folks, this will be the last time that we have Stacy for a little bit because we are going to be traveling extensively for the next 6 weeks. However, I have been trying to work out in my brain, because there are a few places that we're going to be that we should have pretty healthy internet. If I can work out the time difference, I'm wondering if maybe we can't do something, even if it's just a short little hour thing while we're gone. So what I'm going to do is get up with Tiffany and Stacy, and I am going to see, if maybe we can make something work so that everybody doesn't have to go for a long 6 weeks without seeing any of our favorite peoples. So hopefully we can make that happen. I'm trying to, it's a little bit harder sometimes when we're on ships because internet can be so unpredictable on those. This last one was just like unbelievable. But we are going to be staying in some Airbnbs. We are going to be staying in some hotels. So I'm thinking that there's some opportunity there for us to maybe kind of work in a little something. And I think we'll be in a 5-hour difference, 7-hour difference, something like that. I'm not exactly sure which, but we'll figure that out because it could be one of those things where it's morning for you and late at night for me, but we can still make it work. So
Yeah. Well, I'd love to try. So stay in touch.
yes, we'll get together and we'll take care of that. And that way, everybody gets to have their Stacy and Tiffany time. So I don't want to take that away from anybody because we're doing good things here. Definitely.
Yeah, great conversations. Thank you,
Yes.
Cheryl. And I hope you guys have the best travel ever and that all goes well and you thoroughly enjoy your trip.
Yeah, I'm just still trying to work out can I do a rib boat for 2 hours that doesn't have a bathroom? So that's the dilemma of my life right now. Can I be on a boat for 2 hours without a bathroom? Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh no. Trying to work that one out, but it could be fantastic if I can because I would get to see puffins up close and personal and also more whales up close and personal. So I'm really trying to figure out how I can make that work for me. So,
well, I won't tell you what my grandmother used to say to me when I was a little child and we would go to the beach. I would say, I have to go to the bathroom. And she would say, the ocean is God's big bathroom.
That's hilarious.
So, I mean, not that I want to go in the ocean, but in a pinch, it is okay, Cheryl.
Yeah.
You need to do that.
I'm actually thinking because we will be in big like snowmobile suits and stuff, and I'm like, what if I just like bought an adult diaper for the just in case moment, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be some way. But I've been, it's this thing where I don't know, like, as soon as I feel cold and I see water, I instantly have to go to the bathroom. My dad is the exact same way, so I don't know. We'll see. I think I can probably pull it off for 2 hours because I'll be so darn excited about everything else, but, I'm still tossing that idea around.
Well, your heart will tell you what to do.
It will. It will. It will. So, everybody, I hope you have just the very best day, and I will get with Stacy and Tiffany and see what we can do for the next 6 weeks. And hope to see everybody super soon. Bye, everyone.